Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to another episode of Lunch Guide. I'm your host Chef Andy as usual, and today we are going to be focusing on one of the many dishes, as I mentioned in the previous show, dishes that are very easy to make at home, dishes that you can easily make for your family, and dishes that are cost effective, especially on this January season where everything seems to escalate with prices. So for this particular show, I have something really special lined up. We're going to be making some easy to make creamy lentils. We're going to also be making some brown chapatis, and we're going to be pairing that with some beautiful cucumber sticks. So without further ado, I'll take you to this side and start with the ingredients. So I'm going to be working with some red and some white onion, some garlic and some fresh ginger. I've also got some all-purpose flour, white, and I've also got some brown flour. I've also got some hot water there, a bit of sugar, a bit of coconut cream, a bit of olive oil there, some carrots, some beautifully already cooked lentils, so these have just been blanched. Then I've also got some cucumber, I've got some cardamom pods, some salt, and some curry powder. So without further ado, we're going to just jump into this particular preparation, but first of all, we're going to take a short break. I will allow you now to just grab your pens and papers if you're going to be taking notes with this particular episode. And when we come back, we're just going to go and dig right into the preparation. So don't touch that dial, we'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just joining us, we took a short break and we were just introducing the ingredients to my right. And now we're just going to go straight into the very, very simple process of making the first dish of the day, which is some brown chapati. And to that, you will require some salt, you'll require some brown flour, and just a little bit of white flour for rolling out. You'll also require some regular sugar and some hot water. So very, very simple process. We're going to start off by whisking our flour. So I'm just going to grab a sieve for that. So in here I've got 1.5 cups of all-purpose brown flour. So we're just going to sift that quickly into our bowl. And to that, just to strengthen our flour just a little bit, we're going to add about 1/4 cup of white flour. So the beauty of this, it's actually a little more stronger with the gluten, and it actually will also aid us in making a very, very beautiful and hearty chapati. Alright, so it's simple as that. So to that, we're going to add about 2 pinches of salt. We're also going to add just a bit of sugar. So we're going to go with about 3/4 teaspoon of sugar, And to that we'll also be adding about 1 tablespoon of cooking oil. Last but not least, some hot water. So very, very simple. As I mentioned, this is particularly very, very important that you work with your hands. It's one of the easiest ways to combine your chapati flour. So I'm just going to work with my hands. And what you should actually start to get is something completely dry and almost very, very sticky in the beginning stages. So always also remember to always try and pull in the flour that's on the sides of your bowl. This is just to ensure that you don't waste any of your flour. And also always remember just to try and reconstitute all that excess flour that's on your hands. I'm also going to just dust my hands a little bit. And we'll just proceed to combine this beautiful dough. So one of the particular areas to to check on, especially when you're working with your dough. You always want it to be a bit elastic, especially in the particular first stages. So you might notice that it will be just a little dry in the beginning. So what you can do at that stage is just add just a tiny bit of hot water, and then just proceed to just fold in your dough. So very simple process. So basically what I'm doing is just picking up the front of the dough with the tips of my fingers, and basically just tucking that back in with my thumb. So basically it's just a continuous process. So all you want to do is continue just doing the same thing, just lift and tuck continuously. This particularly helps you to really reconstitute all those ingredients into your flour. Right, so you should be able to actually combine everything in your bowl without wasting, and you should be able to come out with a very clean bowl. And basically at this stage what you want to do is just continue to firm up your dough into a ball. And particularly this is important because it also helps you to try and knock out all that excess air that is inside. And once you get to that stage, just easily just roll that back into one firm ball, and just grab some flour and dust just a bit of it inside your bowl. Rest your ball of flour in there. And particularly something I like to do, I always like to dampen a cloth. So this particularly helps to rest your dough really well, and it also stops your dough from drying out. So very simple, just wet a piece of cloth, just cover that up, and you can actually give that a bit of rest. So you can actually always rest that for about 10 to 15 minutes and then come back to it and continue making your chapati. But in the meantime, as we rest that, we're quickly going to jump to this end, and I'll just show you what to do with your lentils. So just dust that area a little bit. So very simple with the lentils. A very particular good substitute for protein. Very good substitute for most of you vegetarians out there. So one of the very most important thing about knowing about your lentils is it actually comes from the pulses side of the ingredients family. So these are particularly good for one reason, the fact that they're actually very good in fiber. They're very healthy. They don't really come with any carbs or any fat. So first of all, they're very handy as well because of the fact that they're a bit more malleable in areas whereby you're trying to substitute vegetarian dishes. So this is a very good option for that. So we're just going to start that off by chopping some onions. So I'm just going to grab a sharp chef knife here, and just using my hands, I'm just going to get most of that skin off quickly. So we'll be working with one red onion and one white onion. White onion particularly for its pungency and its nature in actually really combining ingredients really well and flavors. And the red one particularly to give the dish a generally beautiful flavor. So we're going to do the same thing with our white onion. Just be sure to take off your skins really well. And I'll do the same for the other half. You can also use your knife just to help you get those skins off. So very particular with the lentils. Lentils are very much considered very staple in a lot of Indian homes. It's a very acquired taste, especially for most African families at the moment, but it is becoming a very good substitute, especially in places where you might not be able to actually find beans. Lentils really works really well, and as I said, they're cost effective and they actually are very good substitute for your meals. So we're just going to start off by dicing our white onion. Now just do the same with the other half. Right, so basically what you're looking for is just an even size of your chopped onion. I particularly like to use this size because it really just sweats out really well in your hot pan. Right, so just to finish that off, that should be about enough. So we're just going to discard the rest. So we're going to start off by getting our pan going. And to that we'll be adding about a tablespoon of cooking oil. Right, so we're just going to give that a bit of time to heat up. And while that continues, we'll just grab a bit of the garlic. So to that I'll be incorporating about 3 cloves of garlic. We're just going to quickly, just easily peel those by taking the skins off really quickly. And finally, just chop those up really roughly. Right, so our pan is just about heating up now. The oil is just about hot. Right, so we're just going to add our garlic into a pestle and mortar on the side. And we're going to do the same with some ginger. So with this I'm just going to just quickly peel that with a teaspoon. Remember, this is one particular trick to actually save up on wasting a lot of garlic by chopping it up on this with a knife. This actually helps you save up quite a bit because this particular trick only helps you to take off the skins, and it helps you to save up also on a lot of waste. Right, so our pan is nice and hot. Just going to start by adding our onion. Just grab a wooden spoon and give that a quick mixture. Right, so basically at this stage you want to allow your onions to sweat off a little bit, so I'm gonna add just a little bit of water. Just give that a quick mixture. Right, and while we allow those to just soften up, just going to finish off with this knob of ginger. So I'll start by cutting it lengthwise and slicing it really thinly. Right, so simple as that. That goes into your pestle and mortar. And to that we'll also add about 2 pinches of salt. And last but not least, some cardamom pods. And all you want to do is just break that. Right, so once those are nicely grounded up, using a teaspoon, you're just going to take all of that mixture and add it into your saucepan. Right, so basically we started our onions really slowly at some low heat with a bit of oil and a bit of water. Now we added some garlic and ginger, and we're just going to bring up the heat. And basically you want to give that just a few minutes to just get really aromatic. Right, so just as soon as you start noticing your onions getting just a bit translucent and just starting to really lose that pink color, especially for the red onions. We're going to go in with our lentils. So remember, these have been pre-cooked, and I'm using yellow lentils for this recipe, but remember, lentils do come in about 6 or 7 varieties. You will find quite a bit of varieties out there. Green grams works really well for the recipe as well, so it's definitely going to do the same, give you the same results. Right, so basically what you want to do is just give that a nice mixture. And while that continues, we're just going to add our curry powder. We're just going to give that another mix. Right, so we're just going to allow that to continue cooking for about another minute, and to that I'll add about a 1/4 cup of water. Just give that one quick mixture. So basically this stage is just to allow everything to really just get that aroma in the pan. And what you're going to do is lower the temperature, and we're going to leave that covered for a few minutes. Now to that we're going to also be adding some carrots. So I'm just going to peel about 2 pieces. And basically what you're doing with the carrot, so carrot really just gives it a very, very beautiful general flavor. It also just enhances the color of your dish. So we're just going to go round the sides and also core the tips. Right, so just always remember to core your edges of your carrots as well. Remember, there could be a bit of sand particles at the edges there, which might actually just go back into your mixture, so it's always handy to just core the edges too. And we're just going to discard all that. But as I always insist, if you are going to be making some stock, this will actually help you, so you could actually save those and use them later on. But in the meantime, we're going to quickly just chop those up. So I'm just going to start by just taking one of the sides off, and this makes it a little easier to just get your slices off that. And we'll just do the same with the rest. And just continue doing the same thing to both carrots. Same thing, slice the edges. And then just grab everything together, and then just give that a nice quick fine chop. Remember, carrots are particularly very, very good for your kids, and they're also very, very handy, especially to the food. They carry a lot of vitamins as well as a very, very beautiful sweetness to them. Remember, carrots are very good, especially for growing kids. So I always insist, if you're going to be making some lunch packs for your kids or for yourself, carrots are very, very good ingredient to add to your food, and they actually just refresh your dish in general. So I'm just going to keep chopping to the end. Right, so just easily chopped carrots. To that, we're just going to give that a quick mixture, and then we're just going to add our carrots in there. Right, so very easily just give that one last mix with your wooden spoon. And last but not least, I particularly like to use coconut milk because it adds, it's very, very rich in flavor, very rich in nutrient as well, and it just really, really gives your lentils a very, very good finish. So we're just going to add about half a cup in there, about 3/4 cup rather. And And what you're gonna do now is just give that one last mix. And to that, just to finish off, about 2 pinches of salt. You can just give that a quick mixture. And then just leave that on low heat and just give that a few minutes to just cook to the end on the top of your burner. Remember, particularly with coconut milk and coconut cream, they particularly help your dish thicken and really add the flavor. So it's very particular to give it a bit of time at the end, and it will actually give the flavors you're looking for. So while that continues, I'm just going to move off this counter quickly, and what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to make your chapati. So I'm just going to finish cleaning up my workstation. So coming back to the dough that we made earlier, so this has now been resting for about 10 to 15 minutes. Now we're just going to start off rolling all this out. So very, very simple. Just dust your working surface, and always just give that particular ball of dough just another firm press just before you continue rolling it out. So I like to particularly just use my working counter and easily just shape that to a ball as round as you can. Then just dust with just a bit of flour, and using your rolling pin, I always like to particularly start in the center, and I roll the dough out back to the center and I roll it forward, then just give it a 90-degree turn and start to roll it out again. Right, so you should get to your 4th turn before you actually turn the dough around. Right, so that's the first side. So I'm just going to turn it around, work it around the surface, dust with a bit of flour. Now just start rolling it out again. And remember always to just give it a 90-degree turn and just continue to stretch that dough out a little bit. And then one last 90-degree turn. And your dough should actually be nicely stretched out like mine. So this should be, you're looking at about a quarter thickness in a quarter diameter, a quarter of an inch of thickness at this stage. And then very simply just grab up a bit of some cooking oil, and then just work your way right towards the end. Remember to always give a nice, very, very thin drizzle, just to make sure you don't put too much at one time. And then just using a spoon, just spread out your oil all around the dough. Right, so simple as that. And what you're going to do is just start by rolling it from one end. So all I do is first of all tuck it in like that, and then just continue to roll it all the way to the end. You should actually have a bit of oil that should almost just run onto the surface of your flour, of your dough, sorry. So I particularly like to just let it just pour back right towards the center, and then just roll it off to the end. And then very easily using a knife or using a pizza cutter if you have one, just start to portion those out. So I'm just going to go with 4 pieces. And all you're going to do now is start to just reconstitute those by actually just trapping all that oil in there. Then just give it a bit of a shape. Just do the same thing with the rest. So always remember, just tuck it outside in with your fingertips. Of course, trying to make sure not to allow too much oil to escape at once. and then just fold that with the palm of your hands and just continue doing the same thing to the very end. And now to the last piece, continue doing the same. Right, so simple as that. One particular thing you'll always notice before you actually start rolling out your dough, you might actually notice that your portioned out sizes are never exactly the same size, so it's always just particularly very important to try and level them off. So what I do is I start by just trimming a little bit from the bigger sizes. And it's always just important as well to just take a bit of time, just always try and really portion them out really well, because this is the last stage of your portioning, and basically from here you'd be going straight to rolling them out and cooking. So it's very particular that you get them portioned out, or try and get them to the same size as possible as you can. And now, as you can see, you get about 4 equal sizes. So you're just going to set those on the front there. And I'm just going to easily just dust my working area. I also like to dust just a bit on my hands and just a bit on your rolling pin, just to allow it to really give you leverage when you're rolling out. So what you're going to do is start with the first piece and then just give it a press with your hand, turn it around and give it one more press. Then just a bit of dusting of flour, not too much. So all you're going to do is just start as you did with the previous technique. Just start to roll it out, turning it 90 degrees. And once you get to the 4th turn, just turn it around. Just cover it with a bit of flour off the surface of your counter. Always just shake off the excess as well. And just start to roll that out. Right, so as you can see, very, very simple technique, but I'm just going to grab your attention to this side quickly. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to start by heating our pan that we're going to be cooking the chapatis on. Remember, you always want to give that just a few seconds to heat up while you continue rolling out the rest. So the first one's done. I particularly just love to just dust the flour, just and flour the surface a little bit, and then just continue to roll them out. So as we did with the first technique, a bit of a press on both sides, and then just start to roll them out. Of course, always making sure to look for a very, very consistent thickness. Remember, you're trying to also get them to look exactly the same even at the end of the cooking process. So very, very particular that you just continue with the same process to the very end. Right, just always work with the flour on the surface. And as I said, it's very particular not to dust too much at once. Remember, particularly with chapatis, what happens is the more you continue to dust your chapati, the more it continues to dry out. And I actually want to show you something with this particular piece. So it may happen to some that you may not be able to get the perfect shape. So I'm just going to really just go crazy with this one just to show you. So you might actually eventually always find that you don't get the perfect shape out of your chapati. Very, very simple, nothing to worry about. I always like to just grab a bowl or a plate that I can use. Remember, it could be bigger than this. I'm just going to use this to demonstrate. So I particularly like to just grab a plate and then using a knife or my pizza cutter, just go right around and just lift the excess. And as you can see, that should be able to give you very, very equal sizes of your chapati as you continue. So I'm just going to do the same with this piece. Just gonna go around the sides like that, and then just hold off the pieces for later. You can actually re-roll those. Right, so as I said, very equal pieces. As I mentioned earlier as well, very particular to look for consistency in thickness, a consistency in the size as well, and the particular rolling out of your chapati. So very, very simple. I've got a nice hot pan that's smoking on the side here. So first process is very, very simple. It's always just to dry them out a little bit. So we're just going to lay that on the pan. Just give it a bit of a shake. So this particular stage actually just allows you to pre-cook the dough just slightly. So what happens is the first step is always particular just to pre-cook the dough a little bit. And second of all, it's actually to give it a bit of color. So we're just going to allow that to continue for a few seconds. I'm just going to grab a pair of tongs. So you should actually start to realize a bit of the air pocket starting to swell up. This is a particularly good sign when you're making your chapatis. Remember, it's very important that you know that it's actually cooking right through to the center and it's not going to be very thick. So this is a particularly good sign. As you can see, it actually just starts to lift off the sides and it continues to open a pocket right to the center. So always just try and move your dough as well around the pan, just always to make sure to get an even consistent heat. And as soon as you've got about half of your chapati already blistering from the top, just turn that around and you can see you get a very, very beautiful color. I'm just going to continue moving that around my pan. Remember, it's always just important. Remember, if you're working with a pan, particularly that size, it's always important to move ingredients around the pan. Remember, there's so much surface area on the pan, and that actually allows you to just get a nice even heat distribution. Right, so now this is just about ready. We're just going to go straight and grab a plate. And what you want to do is now rest that for just a few seconds on the side and do the same to all the remaining pieces of chapati that you may have. Remember, I'm only going to do just a few of the ones I'm doing in front of you, just so that you can be able to get the idea. So just similarly, just to the way we did the others, always hot pan, give your chapati just a very, very dry pan. Give the pan a bit of time to heat up. You should actually start to notice a bit of blistering on the chapati, or rather what we call blistering in my world is basically where you start to get these beautiful pockets of air starting to expand, especially from the sides towards the center. And those are particularly very handy. For one, they particularly give you a beautiful timing to how long it takes to brown your chapati. So as you can see for this particular piece, as soon as you actually start to get those bubbles coming off one side of the chapati, as soon as you turn it around, you actually realize a very, very beautiful browning evenly right around it. So that's also a very, very good checkpoint, especially if you're trying to learn how to time yourself, especially knowing when to turn it and how soon to turn it. That is a very, very easy point to remember. So we're just going to brown that just slightly a little more on one side. So as I said, very, very common occurrence. You always find that just before it's about ready to actually give you a chapati the first turn, you should actually be able to notice at least half of the chapati start to swell out and open up into pockets in the center like that. And that actually gives you a very, very good heads up on when to turn. And as you can see, it always gives you a consistent color every time. But also very handy in the kitchen if you do have some kitchen clocks, or if you have a wristwatch that you can use just to be able to get the consistency right. If you're only learning to make chapati for your first time, always particular to just be very consistent with timings. And it actually should allow you to really get some very, very good standard chapatis, even making them from home. Right, so I have these two brown pieces ready. I'm just going to set that on the side. And now all you're left to do now is drop your temperature to as low as possible. Grab a bit of your olive oil. And then just spread that, just a nice even drizzle, about half a tablespoon onto your pan. Then, of course, give your oil a bit of time to just spread out. And particularly with chapatis, remember you're not trying to stick with a very, very soggy kind of bread. It should be very dry. So very important, after just melting a bit of that oil onto your pan, always important to just allow the excess to just pour out. And then you can go straight in with your chapati. Right, so I particularly like to get this stage going with my fingertips. So it's very, very simple. Just work your hand with the chapati right around the base of the pan like that. It could actually get hot, and most of you might not be able to do it really well when it does. So I like to just grab that bit of extra oil I had, just spread that around the top of your chapati. And then just give that a turn, and then just do the rest on the other side. And that should actually allow you to get a very, very good chapati that's not too oily particularly, and it's not too greasy. So something that you should actually be able to enjoy or even consume even in the vicinity of your desk at work. Right, so now that's nice and browned. As you can see, it's nice and shining on one side. We're just going to do the same with the other piece. Just a bit of oil to work with in the bowl. And we're just going to repeat the same process. Just a bit of oil over the top. And remember, your chapati is already cooked, it's already brown, so you shouldn't actually hold it on the pan for too long. As soon as you've greased the first side, just turn it around. Repeat the same process for the other side. Turn it around once more, and that actually should be done. So we're just gonna turn off the heat. We're gonna move that to the side. So as I said, very, very simple technique to making your own chapatis. Very, very handy as well. As I said, the particular sizes I made today was just for demonstration. Remember, your chapati does get to about 25 to 30 centimeters in diameter. So you should actually be able to just do the same particular process for chapatis you're going to be doing in the future. Remember, just to get that a little bigger in size to what it is now, you could be looking at about 30 to 35 grams a bowl for something that size. And anything between 45 to 55 grams should actually give you quite a stable size amount of chapati. So we're going to take a short commercial break now, and I'm going to clean up the station. And when we come back, I'm going to show you a very, very simple way of presenting this particular dish. I'm also going to show you to make the cucumber sticks that we mentioned earlier. Remember, this is a segment where we are showing you some very, very simple tips of how to make a very simple and cost-effective lunch that you can be able to take with you to work. But please don't touch that dial. Whatever's coming in later on in the show, you definitely don't want to miss. So don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those who are with us just before the break, we were just finishing off some chapatis. We also have some lentils that we made a little earlier, and now we've gotten to the last and final stage of your lunchbox preparation, which is basically the assembly. So particularly I like to first of all start by just working out some of the condiments that you can actually add to your children or your lunchbox particularly. And particularly for this, I've decided to go with cucumber sticks, and these are very, very simple. I'll show you how. So these, you just very simply need to just grab one whole cucumber, or two pieces rather, for an adult portion. All you need to do is just grab some cucumber, as I've done, and then just take your knife and work right through them just to get and core out the seeds. So these are particularly very nice and refreshing, especially once you've had more of a greasy kind of a lunch. For instance, if you're having chapati, for instance, these are really handy because they actually help to cleanse your palate as soon as you're done with your meal, and they actually help in really just eradicating all those aromas from the coconut and the onions that you might actually experience during your lunch break. So very simple to that. I would just add those to a bowl, and I'll just grab some apple cider vinegar. So remember, vinegar is particularly very good because it actually helps to cut down a lot of fatty substitutes in food. It actually also helps to cleanse your palate and really just get the grease out of your mouth. So it's very handy. So for the seeds, these I'm just going to discard. Remember, the particular reason why I take the seeds out is because when you actually pack this, the seeds and the flesh inside the cucumber really releases a lot of water, and what happens is you will end up with, for instance, a lot of liquid really just seeping to the bottom of your container, and what happens is this could actually just ruin the presentation and the aroma of the dish in general. So very particular that you actually just take the seeds out, and then very simply just mix that together. I also like to add just a small pinch of salt and just a bit of freshly grounded black pepper. So all you need to do is just give that a quick mixture. And now this can just easily go into your takeaway container. So remember, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, we are going to be particularly concentrating on a couple of dishes this particular season, and the particular ones that we're going to be focusing on at this time is basically just your very simple and easy to make lunch boxes. So I've started with the condiments, which is just basically simple as that. So I would just slide that into my container, and then the next step would just basically be incorporating everything else. So that would be particularly the lentils we had earlier. So I'll just grab some lentils like so, and I'll just portion them out to just fill at least just one side of this insert for your containers, for your takeaway container. So simple as that. And then you could just easily finish that off by just grabbing a few slices of chapati, especially if it's for an adult portion. So I would basically just pack those like that. But remember, of course, if you are going to be closing this and setting it for packing, you might actually want to really cut those really smaller, and they can actually be able to fit really well. And then, as I always insist, it's always also nice for me to also come back and show you something you could do with the kids version. So this would probably be one that you'd actually pack for yourself, and this is a particularly similar one that you'd also use, especially if you're doing any takeaways for your kids in particular. So this would actually just break down into the same, but you'd probably have to cut your cucumber slithers a little shorter. You'll probably also cut your chapatis a little smaller, and it's actually particularly why we use the smaller chapati, and that is for the reason that these actually, you can be able to just quarter them really quickly, and these actually just fit into your children's lunch boxes really easily. And as I said, this was actually the reason why I did one of the small ones and one of the big ones, just to be able to show you a few tricks you can play around, especially when making your lunch boxes. So it is as simple as that, and I guess a lot of you have managed to learn something new today, and something new that you can actually introduce to your dinner, to your lunch table. I hope you have actually enjoyed the show as well, like I have myself. As I said, we are actually going to be going through a couple of episodes where we're going to be showing you some very easy to make and cost-effective dishes that you can actually be serving or serve to your family this particular January season. So I bet this is going to be something that most of you are going to be looking at to introduce to your new year. So from the studios and myself, it has been a pleasure. You have been watching Lunch Guide on BrandPlus TV. My name is Chef Andy, your regular host. As I always insist, do also check out our Facebook page. Leave your comments, your inquiries, or any questions that you may have. We also do have some very, very beautiful episodes on our BrandPlus TV link on YouTube. Do check out the videos. There is plenty for you to learn. There is plenty of a few other episodes we've done before. Remember, we are now on season 5, so there is plenty of stuff for all of you to learn, both adults and kids. So from the studios and myself, I have definitely enjoyed myself today, and I'm just going to wind off by wishing you all a lovely and prosperous new year. And until the next episode, enjoy your lunch and have a lovely day.